Welcome back to Sidewalk, Skyline podcast. I'm your host, Kevin Rogers. And today on the podcast, I'm having a conversation with Jessica Sanchez. Jessica is a filmmaker and a musician based in Calgary, Alberta, with a profound passion for the arts and the artist community, not just in her own city, but across Canada. She's very interested in the intersection between arts and faith. And with creativity and artistry at the core of everything that she does and wants to do, she's consistently strived to express and explore the human experience and faith through her work. So welcome, Jess. Good to have you on today. And let's start the conversation by getting to know you. So tell me about your formative years. What were things that shaped your childhood and teen years, and also maybe in that journey about how your self-understanding of being an artist emerged.
Yeah, this is a great question. I grew up with incredibly musical parents, and that's shaped the way that I've learned and have grown into my own creativity throughout the years. My parents, they both served on various worship teams at different churches, but they also had a band that they would often gig with on the weekends just to make a little bit of extra cash, but also just a way for them to get together with their friends and play music that they loved listening to. Music was something that was just always happening in my house, whether it was music that my dad was playing on the stereo, which would often range from like gospel to country to soft rock. And then I would often also hear myself or my mom just singing to herself while washing the dishes or doing the laundry. And then I would also hear my dad practicing the drums or the electric guitar in our basement. And so, like, it was just something that was always present in our household. I learned how to play 5 instruments by the time I was 16 years old. My dad taught me both guitar and drums, and I was self-taught in piano, in bass, in vocal technique, and more of the more intricate musical things. But I've never had any classical training for it, like apart from taking music or piano lessons for about 7 months before I quit because I couldn't sight read and I felt the pressure of having to do the Royal Conservatory and all of that kind of thing. So I was just like, I don't think this is for me. But I also I this is a funny story. I cheated a little bit by getting my piano teacher to play the pieces beforehand, and I would just kind of watch her fingers and listen to her play it. And then I would just copy how she would do it exactly. And I think I got away with it for a little bit, but I think she also knew that I wasn't like actually reading any of the music that she was giving me. So yeah, I just kind of dropped that. But I mean, I was still very interested in learning piano, so I still ended up teaching myself how to do it. So all of that to say, artistry is just so ingrained in our family's DNA, and that's really shaped my understanding of who I was designed to be. And though I do often go back and forth of seasons of doing musical things versus more visual, artistic, creative things, I've come to understand that regardless of whether I'm feeling particularly creative or not, it's a part of me and it's a part of who I am and a part of what I can offer to God as worship.
Yeah, that's it's great because a you're not foreign to your own family. You're doing things that they already have a heart and a passion for, right?
Yeah, totally.
Um, um, let's talk a bit about the arts and that intersection of faith and the arts.
Yeah.
Um, so we have this cultural meme of the starving artist. You know,
Yeah.
it's not. I mean, in some cases, you might find somebody who says I'm an artist, but they never create anything. They just wish
Right.
they could, right? But
Hmm.
the starving artist, more likely, it's not because they lack the focus or effort. Um, Sometimes, it can be the struggle to, I only want to do art without a price tag. I don't want to get sucked into a market mentality. I
Mm.
don't want to have too much interference in how I do my art. Um, I have to be authentic. I can't sell out. Um, you know, and then you got the other side of it where, okay, so let's say that you're say, well, no, I'm willing to, you know, um, serve others with my art, not just my own artistic vision. But then we live in Canada where it's hard to make a living off $50 gigs.
Yeah.
Um, and there's not a lot of people hiring artists. They might hire people that can produce artistic, creative things for them, but not usually hiring somebody to say, I want you to be an artist and to just spend all your time creating. And, so that's kind of a Canadian reality and perhaps in a lot of other parts of the world too. But so talk to me a bit about your own experience, the tensions as an artist. What's been your experience along those lines?
Yeah, it's such a good question. There was a meme that I saw the other day that I sent to a friend of mine that I thought was really funny because I think more often than not, a lot of artists are also great procrastinators. And I can speak for myself on that one. I often will get like, oh, like this burst of, I have a great idea, but then I'll like put it off for so long because I'm such a perfectionist. And the meme was basically like being a procrastinator, but also a perfectionist. So you're constantly stressed about the quality of work that you haven't even started. Um, and this made me laugh just because I'm like, oh, that's me. But to kind of circle back, like, yeah, like I have experienced these tensions quite often, just like working in the church world, but also
Hmm.
working in the industry and also being aware of like industry standards. Um, and there's a very fine line of actually understanding like what's practical, but also like what's an investment that I need to be making into this. For an example, like oftentimes youth camps or summer camps would be like a really good uh, like I guess example of this because you do youth camps not for the paycheck because oftentimes too like sometimes camps just won't have the luxury of having enough
Yeah.
to be able to pay
Yeah.
the people that they're asking to serve.
Talking
But
about the $50 gigs.
exactly, yeah.
Yeah.
Um, and so when you are invited to do something like a camp, it's like you really do have to ask yourself, what do I really want to invest? Like, what do I want to invest my time into? Like, is this something worth my time? And I mean, I don't know. It really depends too on like the kind of person. Because for me, like if I get asked to do the camp, I will always say yes because it's investing into the next generation and it's investing into young leaders that you just never know who the next, again, like very cliche saying, like you just never know who the next Billy Graham is going to be. Could
Hmm.
be that 10-year-old that's attending camp for the first time and actually doesn't even know who Jesus is. But because you said yes to something, that's a very eternal thing. Um, but then you also do have to be aware of like boundaries too, of like, yes, it is a week of my time, but I also don't get that much vacation time from my job that I'm working. And so, um, like I recently sat down with a couple of my friends for a podcast that I'm also doing. But like one thing that rang clear is we do have to be very careful about what our desires or intentions are, where our hearts are at, and how we steward things well. I think as artists, we need to discern what art we make for art's sake, and then what art we make that can pay the bills.
Hmm.
Because as much as we'd love to make beautiful things all the time, we also need to be very practical about the world that we live in and how we're going to pay rent or, how we're going to be able to get the groceries. Now that's again, that's it's a bit of a double entendre because like that often looks like having to work another part-time job that isn't necessarily in our field just to pay the bills. And so
Right.
this is where I think the starving artist paradigm comes from, because now you have an artist who's like incredibly gifted, but they're having to work whatever jobs they need to do in order to pay the bills. Because sometimes, being a music producer, you're kind of already in a competition with other music producers in the city.
Hmm.
And if you haven't built up a portfolio, but you still love doing it, there's a way that you can still be able to like work on that, but then you also need to be practical and be like, well, I can't survive off of just one client a month kind of thing. Or like, um, yeah, and then yeah, like it's such a nuanced thing because like you have artists that can do producing full time and or any kind of other like craft or whatever discipline that they might be in, and they're able to do it full time. But then you're also going to have other people that want to do that full time but just can't. And so yeah, I think more or less like it's just, what do we want to invest in? What do we want to be a part of? What's worth our time, but also what can pay the bills, which I
Hmm.
mean, again, it's like a million questions you gotta kind of
Yeah,
balance out.
yeah. So in terms of mediums of artistic expression, playing musical instruments live, that's very tactile.
Hmm.
That's skill focused, performance focused. Making films is a different kind of skill set where um, it there's the tactile in the moment of getting the good shots and the right lighting, and
Hmm.
but then there's the production side of things, which is more digital, more reflective. Sometimes you don't have as much time as you would like, but you've got different sets of tools for doing that. So the tactile and then the visual, or I mean the digital, the virtual.
Hmm.
What are your mediums? What are all your mediums?
Yeah, I live in this really interesting world of being both a multidisciplinary musician and also a visual artist. So I do have ways in each that are both tactile and digital as well. And I've also worked at in positions at various places that have made these things that I love dearly as part of my job. And so I've had to navigate how much of these things feel like work and balancing what parts of it can still bring me life. Because yeah, I've worked jobs where like photo and video is my job, but then you kind of go through the motions of, man, like what do I do on the weekends that doesn't feel like I'm working? And then I've
Hmm.
also worked in positions too where like music production and songwriting is part of my job. And so what can I do on the weekends that doesn't feel like I'm at work? Um, I've had seasons, for the musical side of things. Like I've had seasons of songwriting with the church, as opposed to songwriting for myself, and that's actually been a really good challenge for me because I've even figured out what my voice is, what my songwriting, I guess, flair is,
Hmm.
opposed to like when I write corporately, versus for like when I'm writing for stuff that feels true to who I am
Yeah,
as a songwriter, as an artist. And then
yeah.
on the other side of, I've had seasons of doing visual work with companies. I just finished up a year-long contract with a coffee company here in Calgary, and photo and video, like marketing was my job. And I've had to really navigate that because I love photo and video so much. But there have been times where, like, because I'm frequently shooting, like I'm frequently getting content and making content, that like it just takes the wind out of my sails by the time the weekend rolls by. And like if I wanted to do like maybe a passion project I've been thinking about, I don't feel motivated to pick up my
Mm.
camera. And so I've also had to figure out and find like a creative outlet. Like recently, like for example, I just picked up film photography, which is, it's same but different. Like it's not quite what I do for my work, but it's still in the realm of photo and visual. And I've really appreciated the art of it being like a slow art. Something I've been like really fascinated by lately is like the idea of slow art and how can we be intentional with what we have, because with film, like you have a roll of film and you only have a limited amount of exposures, and so you just can't be going around and burst shooting everything that you see. Like you have to slow down frame your shot, find the lighting, compose your shot, take the shot, and then just trust that it'll actually turn out. Otherwise, like I've had moments where I've shot blank rolls too, and that's the most frustrating thing. But then it's like, hey, at least I went out and tried and did something new. And so, yeah, I've kind of like had to experiment with new methods in order for me to
Yeah.
also like find that creative bubble, that creative
It's
outlet for me.
it's interesting when you are interdisciplinary how trying something new and something that you don't have experience in, how one discipline speaks to another, right?
Yeah.
And learning a new thing might strengthen the thing that you're already strong in, making it stronger again. Kind of like
Yeah.
with all the musical instruments you play, right?
Mhm.
You can do music production because you know what the drummer should be doing, you know what the keyboardist should be doing, you know what the guitar and the bass and the vocals, and you can have a bigger vision than just that one lane that you're in.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Which I find can, for me specifically, can feel like both a gift and a curse, like just being involved in like so many things. Because there'll be seasons where I want to do it all, and then
Mm-hmm.
there's seasons where I just don't want to do anything at all. And it's like,
Yeah.
well, hello, you have like 10 different things that you could choose from. Like, just pick something. But
Yeah.
yeah, it is really finding like what brings you joy, and what are the things that are giving you life in the season. Because it
Mm-hmm.
might not look like maybe filmmaking for one, but it actually could look like just playing the drums and just, getting out your frustrations that way,
Yeah.
or
Yeah.
vice versa. So that's like the
So,
fun part.
right, right. Do you think that uh, you mentioned perfectionism, right?
Mm,
And how do you think that perfectionism can actually stop a person from pursuing excellence?
yeah, absolutely. I like very much like in that meme, you can cause yourself to get lost in your own thoughts, and then you start to overthink things
Mm-hmm.
to the point where you don't do it at all. Um, and so like I've had seasons where I'm like, oh, because like, maybe, and I don't know, perfectionism is also rooted in comparison. Just
Right.
because you're seeing what other people are doing, and then you're like, well, I'm not going to be as good as them, so I'm not even going to try. And so that's kind of where I think where a lot of artists can get lost in, is because they're constantly comparing themselves to other. But then
Mm,
it's at the same time, it's like, no, I think God has put you and gifted you and entrusted you with a gift for a specific thing and a
mm-hmm.
specific reason. And you shouldn't be, like comparing yourself and
Yeah.
trying to be perfect in that sense because it looks perfect on social media or like on a website.
Yeah. When do you feel most confident? Like, are there times when you create something and you're not playing the comparison game, or you're not feeling inferior, or
Mm.
what talk me through that. When do you feel that confidence as an artist?
Yeah. Um,
Do you feel that
yeah.
confidence as an artist?
Yeah, there's obviously with every artist, like you become great when you have put a certain amount of hours into your craft. And like obviously like the saying of like you need to put at least 10,000 hours into a discipline in order to be, well, is it professional or at least proficient? I can't remember.
Yeah.
Maybe professional. Um, and so like for me, I think I know myself well enough that I have put enough hours into basically everything that I do, that I can feel confident in what I do for whatever that might be. So
Hmm.
if that's music, if I'm playing keys on a Sunday morning, like I don't need to feel the comparison to, because like there's obviously things that I can still grow in. Like I still need to learn how to play gospel keys well, like
Yeah.
gospel scales. I still need to learn how to play Latin scales well. And there's people at our church that do that incredibly well.
Hmm.
Um, but there's also areas that I know that I've been gifted for specifically, and that happens to be in my case, like I can really flow really well and kind of
Yeah.
like I do have a propensity towards what the spirit is doing in the room. And so I feel the confidence in that because I know that the Lord is leading me in that. And
Hmm.
like,
Hmm.
I mean, yeah, long story short, like, when you can kind of sense that the spirit is leading you in something, that's when I feel confident in what I'm doing. And so I don't need to worry about, oh, someone else is doing the same thing. It's like, well, I know, and I'm doing my thing because this is what the Lord has given me and has asked
Yeah.
me to steward.
So I think the that perfectionism can also work against our sense of community,
Hmm.
because if I'm constantly comparing myself to others that can do it better than I am, then I'm not as teachable. I'm more
Right.
locked up, right? And but when you're
Yeah.
comfortable in community and you genuinely enjoy the gifting that's in somebody else and you're
Hmm.
open, you're able to watch and learn, right? Or
Yeah.
listen and
Totally.
learn. Yeah. But if you're
Yeah.
feeling like, oh, I have to be as good as they are, and oh, I can't do what they do, so I'm not going to try, then we we
Totally.
we miss the point, right?
Yeah. And I think
Yeah.
there's an aspect of like of a great self-awareness that we also need to have because yeah, I mean I have trained, I've practiced in like many disciplines for
Hmm.
many years, but then I've also have friends that have been doing it for as long as I've been alive. And so
Hmm.
that keeps me grounded and like, yeah, I'm never going to be better than them. Like,
Yeah.
and that's okay. And yeah, just like having, and I that's something that's a gift, like that's something that I've had to build up like the last 10 years of being involved in so many things. Like there's still people that I like look up to and honor so much.
Hmm.
But I have the self-awareness to know that, yeah, like my friends, Ryan and Wendy or whatever, like
Hmm.
I know they have a gifting towards songwriting that I just don't have. And I can honor that and I can see that and I can champion that.
Yeah.
Um, and so, yeah, it's having the self-awareness of what God has graced you for.
Yeah. Yeah.
And, gracing others to, do what they are meant and called to do.
Yeah. Yeah. So something that's, I guess, new in this last year is becoming a Mission Canada worker and feeling a particular pull towards being a spiritual energizer in the arts community. Um, what have you discovered about your encounters with the arts community, both in the church and outside the church, that leads you to believe that a Christ-like instigator might be a good thing in the arts? Like
Yeah.
you doing that. Are you worried? Do you worry about people not understanding your motives?
This is a good question. So loneliness is the biggest pandemic within the arts community right now. And so a lot of the struggles, a lot of the issues, a lot of like the heart hurts of artists are that they just feel alone and they don't feel seen or they don't feel understood.
Right.
And so we have an incredible opportunity to, just even partner and journey alongside some of these people because that's really all that they're looking for is a friend, someone that can see them and like, I know your heart, I get your heart, and I get your art as well, not just your heart. Um, one of the things that caused me to kind of transition into mission work in this way was like I'd served on church as a creative pastor for years and one of the most beautiful things, obviously, was seeing the rise and like seeing how, Christian artists actually can do the thing of like making good art, making good Christian art, but mostly art that glorifies God.
Mhm.
Um, I actually don't even like using the term Christian art that much because it's like, well, everything still is it's art, and like if it points people to Jesus, I think that's what the goal is. Um, but I've kind of ran into this frustration of meeting like while I was on staff at church, to like meeting people, encountering people on projects that I would be doing, like freelance projects, because I still did that on the side. People that were in the industry, and like just hearing their stories of like either growing up in the church and then leaving the church because their gifts weren't valued, or like there wouldn't be any space for them to serve or anything like that. And that's kind of what caused them to turn away and walk away from faith. I've
Mm-hmm.
even encountered people in the industry that never have been involved in church or faith, but have a great spiritual like understanding or like a propensity towards the religious or spiritual.
Mm-hmm.
And so I think for me, there was like that frustration of I have so many friends of mine from the church that are leaving the church because just there wasn't space for them to express themselves or their art, or like that they weren't seen or understood or cared for very well. Um, and some of these people, like I was chatting with a friend about this last night, but like one of my best friends, one of the most gifted worship songwriters that I know, like has written songs that have made me cry like nonstop. Um, but also because like there's just a profound prophetic voice to it. There's a profound prophetic edge to it. And having this friend walk away from the church completely because of, just like a non-understanding of their heart, of their craft, of like who they are as an artist. And that grieves me so much because that happens more often than not. And then we are stuck with church leadership asking like, where are all the artists? Well, we had
Mm.
them and then
Yeah,
they left because we didn't create space for them. And
right.
not to say that the church isn't good at that. I mean, we have like, our music teams, we have our creative teams with, photo video, but sometimes we're not even thinking about like the more niche kind of artists of
Yeah.
like the fine artists too. So how do we create space for artists like that? And so a lot of my heart was, I want to be able to create a space for artists to come to Jesus, to know
Mm-hmm.
Jesus,
Mm-hmm.
but also like practically, how do we journey with them? Because what happens is we get lost in the discipleship journey. It's
Yeah.
like once you have someone on the worship team, it's like, oh yeah, they're good, they're fine, right?
Yeah.
But we forget that there's still like a very intentional journey that we have to walk with, because if we don't, then we'll, kind of lose sight of
Mm-hmm.
what we're doing, or sometimes like, yeah, like lose sight of what's important to us and what we care about.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. So one of your online entities is a website, Renaissance Canada, and
Hmm.
I'll put links in the show notes to
Yeah.
anything good that I can coming out of you. But Renaissance Canada details some of your vision to redeem, rebuild, and restore beauty in a broken world. And so, talk to me a bit about uh, this big idea of Renaissance.
Yeah. Okay, I'm just gonna pull up a Bible verse real quick because this is really where it came from. Um, So years ago, when I was working at a church called Journey Church, a pastor, an incredible pastor that I think we both know, her name is Jess
Hmm.
DeSabatino, took a
Yep,
chance on me, hiring me as a junior high pastor.
she's
And
smart.
she is so smart. And this was at a time where I was trying to figure out, like, because I felt called towards ministry. I really felt passionate about student ministry. But I also felt passionate about the arts. And I didn't know it then, and I didn't really have language for, just like what the Lord was putting in my heart. But she took a chance on me and, gave me space to do both student ministry and also the creative. And that's kind of what got me like the wheels turning really about like what does it look like for the arts in the church to kind of intersect. And one area that I was particularly like drawn to was even just the theological like precedence behind why the arts matter. And there's a book that I read years ago by Makoto Fujimura. He is a theologian and a professor and an artist in the US. And his primary, I guess, discipline is kintsugi. And so, or not like that's not his discipline, but that's like a profound artistic, uh, what is it, technique
Hmm.
in Japanese culture. And I just there's I think it was like from I think it was a book called Culture Care, where he was, talking about this idea of it's not just the artists that we need to like care for, but it's like it's the culture because a lot of, where these ideas come from comes from culture. And it was interesting because, years and years and years and years, like in our church history, like early church history, the church was leading culture
Hmm.
and leading in the arts. And they would commission artists to make all these like paintings and sculptures and stained glass and architecture to point people to the creator. Because at that time, people were illiterate. And so they couldn't like read scripture to like get to know God. They actually had to have a revelation, like a visual revelation of
Hmm.
who God is through art. And Makoto Fujimura, he was lecturing at, I think it was either like some big like gala in New York. I can't even remember what it was called. This was years ago. But his opening remarks was based on Isaiah 61. And we know Isaiah 61, it's the words that Jesus had prophetically spoke, like after he had spent time in the wilderness. Um, I had never heard anyone use Isaiah 61 in the artist or in the context of artists, but there was something so powerful about like, just like reading it again, um, of like the Spirit of the Sovereign Lord is on me because the Lord has anointed me to proclaim good news to the poor. Reading that through like an artist's lens actually changed the trajectory of what I believe in and like how I can actually use this gifting of mine to point people to Jesus, to like share the good news through
Hmm.
my craft. And that was incredibly powerful for me because I'm like, okay, yeah, like if I'm kind of getting this, like imagine how much more an artist, like if they read this and was like, oh yeah, like my craft can bring good news to the poor, can bring good news into this world because, we need we need good news. Um, and then further on in the verse, it was saying, like, they will rebuild the ancient ruins, they will restore the places long devastated, they will renew the ruined cities that have been devastated for generations. I just found that to be like such a prophetic picture of like, artists are the ones that can help build the broken cities, rebuild what's been broken, restore what's broken. And then, kind of circling back to what I mentioned earlier about kintsugi, like this is a technique that uses gold to paint over cracks in ceramics that might have been destroyed. Um, to not only to reinforce it and fix it. And sometimes, when you paint over a crack, it's like, oh, it's kind of ugly. Like you kind of just, it's ruined. But they do it with gold, not only to highlight, the cracks in the piece of work, but also to reinforce it. It makes it stronger. And so that's like tying those two ideas together was just so deeply profound to me that like there are just so many people out there that have a voice, that have a gift, that have a craft that actually could be used in rebuilding this broken world.
Mm,
And
yeah,
so that's really what, what kind of inspired me to start Renaissance.
that's great. We actually, I think you and I met first time in person. We were at a conference in Montreal earlier
Hmm.
this year,
Yeah.
and you can't go to Montreal without having some kind of visual encounter with beautiful things.
Yeah.
Anything that was especially meaningful to you that you saw in Montreal?
Yeah, you might laugh at this. So the first day that we were there, we went to I think it was just like literally just the rehearsals for Cirque du Soleil. Like it wasn't even the actual show yet. They were just, I think practicing and getting all the kinks out of the way. I This is so funny. I don't know why, but I was already feeling kind of emotional of like just, being in a city that I've never been to but have always wanted to visit. But for some reason, like the spirit was just like n nudging me so hard, and I mean, I do know why, but it was just kind of funny. Like, cause we had just landed, and then we went straight to Cirque du Soleil. I'd never seen it before. I've never like experienced a live show. But there was a moment where literally it was just a dude, and he was just like doing a front flip through a hula hoop. Kevin, I don't know why, but as soon as he did that and the crowd started clapping, I cried. Like I cried in my seat. It was so embarrassing. I don't know. Like I think the people next to me are like, "What's going on?" Like actual tears were just streaming from my face. And for me, I think it was just the beauty of like there's thousands of people in here applauding this one guy. And even though like he literally messed up like earlier, like he couldn't do it. I think it was like his second or third try of just trying to get through this hula hoop. But I think it was just like for me a really prophetic image of like everyday people spurring this artist on, despite the failures, despite the, you know,
Yeah.
you didn't make it
Yeah.
until he finally did. But even then, like they would still applaud. Like I'm
Yeah.
trying not to cry right now because it was just so beautiful. But I'm like, I long for the day for that
Did,
to happen.
did you cry when you saw the contortionist?
I didn't cry happy tears for that one.
Or
I mean, it actually it's quite fascinating how the human body can do that.
Mhm.
I just for some reason I just couldn't watch that without wanting to gag because it's
Yep.
just so not natural.
Yeah. 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 It's interesting because we do have these expressions that are beautiful, that we are inspired by. And then there are other expressions that we do maybe want to gag or we have a horror fascination with. And
Yeah.
um, yeah, some something you said on online, you said you talked about creativity sometimes being used to fill space rather than change it.
Mm.
And I thought, oh, that's meme worthy. Um, no, but talk to me about the ways that environments change through having good art, whether that's music or lighting or pieces that have been created or furniture, like
Yeah.
that whole idea of, that we're not just filling up space, but we're changing space.
Yeah. I think art is always meant to be thought-provoking. And I mean, I'm kind of teetering on the edge of something here, but if it's not thought-provoking, like what was the point of it? Do you know what I mean?
Hmm. Hmm.
Like we always want to be creating something that I mean, I'm a firm believer in this, but especially as followers of Jesus and also being artists, like we always want our art to be pointing to the ultimate creator,
Hmm.
to be pointing to good news, to be pointing to the revelation of who Jesus is.
Hmm.
And so I think more than ever, like we have this incredible opportunity to be able to make things that cause people to stop in their tracks and think
Hmm.
about it. I
Hmm.
mean, that's exactly what artists in like early centuries would do. It's like, you know, it would cause people to stop and think about what's happening, not just happening in the image, but what are the feelings that it's invoking?
Hmm.
Like, what's a reaction that's coming out of me? And I think more often than not, like I think we shy away from making things that, yeah, are thought-provoking because we're scared of people not like liking it or like, you know, the
Hmm.
criticism that might follow. But I mean, if we think back about the life of Jesus, like everything he did pissed people off left, right, and center.
Yeah, that's true.
And so, I obviously take that with caution too, but I think as artists, we do have a responsibility to create things that, yeah, not just fills the space, but changes it. Like, you know, are we praying for the pieces that we make, and are we praying that, you know, God's Spirit would just touch them and touch the people that encounter these works? Are we? like interceding that, someday that like whoever that might be takes a look, one glance at maybe a painting or listens to one of our songs and is just rocked by God in that moment. So I think, yeah, like that's really like what the goal is. And you look back to like even Genesis, how God created the world. He created everything with this incredible intricacy. Like I think about the
Mm-hmm.
human body. I was literally talking to my friend last night about how when babies are born, like they're born with all of their teeth, but you
Mm-hmm.
obviously don't see it, but it's in there.
Yeah.
And then I was showing her an X-ray of a baby's skull, like before the teeth come in, but you can see it still. Like
Wow.
you could see like the 64 teeth, just and it's like God had to think of that, like how the teeth would come in and then that first set would just fall out eventually, but then the second set would come in our
Mm-hmm.
like later life. Like there's just marvels and it causes you to think about things. And like we always want to be able to, yeah, stop and think and be provoked in either whatever, good ways or bad. But then I feel like that's also where the Holy Spirit can do his work. And like, there's a reason why you might be having a very visceral reaction to this
Mm.
and why. So we always want to be, making things that like cause people to ask themselves why.
Yeah, I think I think about the words of Jesus when and he's echoing the prophets when he says, for him who has ears to hear,
Mm.
for him who has eyes to see. And he talks about people who see but don't see, who hear but don't hear. And I think that is such a pet peeve for artists, isn't it? That that's
Yeah.
something so attractive for an artist about Jesus is he gets it.
Yep.
But I mean, it's also possible for creatives to have a different kind of blindness, a different kind of deafness, right?
Mm.
Maybe some of that perfectionism is an example of that, where we're we're seeing something, but we're not really seeing it because other things are blocking our vision.
Mhm.
Um, Talk to me a little bit about, some of the people that creative people that have inspired and influenced you, whether they're, known and famous or unknown but influential in your life. Talk to me about um, the role of other creatives that have made some kind of indelible imprint into your soul.
Yeah, this is really good. I often try to surround myself with people that are just already so good at what they're doing. And I always come into it with a lens of like, what is something that I can be learning from you? Because like there's always things that I want to be learning from my friends who are, like professionals, professional musicians, professional um like business owners, like all these things, songwriters, producers. Um, I always try to surround myself with people that I can ask questions and feel safe to ask
Mhm.
questions. And even like people that are in different disciplines that I don't necessarily spend that much time in. So one of my friends, yeah, like she's a business owner, she's an entrepreneur. They own multiple businesses. I'm actually staying at their house right now. Um, but they also serve on staff at church, and that's such a fascinating thing to me because oftentimes business owners are too busy to be serving at church. But even if they sometimes even if they are like Christians and they come to church on Sundays. But it is really fascinating to see, the ways that they're able to navigate owning all these businesses, but then still leading worship on Thursday nights or Sunday mornings or that kind of thing.
Yeah,
I try to spend,
living an integrated life, right?
yeah,
Not
totally.
not compartmentalized of, okay, now I set aside work and now I'm going to
Hmm.
church. I mean, they
Yeah.
do have different, they're interdisciplinary, aren't they?
Yeah,
Yeah.
100%. But then I also love spending time with people who are just writers and are more like introverted. And so
Hmm.
they often will value more quality time together. Uh, and, just getting all of the creative ideas out in
Mm.
maybe just like a session of sitting down together at a coffee shop in silence. Because I also need that just as much of like, okay, there's something that you're pondering, there's something deep that the Lord is
Hmm.
doing in your heart right now.
Hmm.
And I think I could be learning from that as well.
Yeah.
I'll try to spend time with friends who who are like rappers and like I don't not that I don't understand that world at all, but it's just so fascinating to see what the creative
Hmm.
processes are. So for me, I just try to spend time with people who just have different creative processes than I do and just like learn a little bit from that because
Yeah.
I don't think we ever perfect one thing in that way. And so
Yeah. That's part of having eyes to see and ears to hear, right? Is
yeah.
being open to more than that which is predictable and confined, but to see beyond that.
Mhm.
And um, so on a daily or semi-regular basis, how do you renew yourself and replenish that well? How do you avoid writer's block or artistic depletion? What's working for you these days?
I feel like I think being as, interdisciplinary as I am, it will vary like kind of what my soul or even like what my body will need. But one thing that I have tried to stick and stay true to is either like one day on a weekend, whether that be like Friday or a Saturday, just being off my phone completely.
Mm-hmm.
Like having do not disturb on and like only using it if I need to.
Mm-hmm.
But then doing something on one of those days that will fill my tank. So I don't stick to like one thing because I just always want to be doing like a different thing. And maybe that's just the artist in me also like
Mm-hmm.
wanting to
Mm-hmm.
try different things. But some days it'll look like taking a drive out to the mountains, and some days it will look like having a 4 hour gaming session.
Mm-hmm.
And so it kind of just like, hey, like what do I need to do to kind of, get this like nervous energy out that I have, but also just something that not just like calms me, brings me like joy, but also like where I can find rest in.
Yeah.
Um, because like
Yeah.
sometimes when we do like have Sabbaths or like rest activities, it like sometimes it looks like actually doing another thing.
Mm-hmm.
But then there's other days where it's like I actually just want to be a bit of a couch potato and just binge watch like 3 seasons of a TV show
Yeah.
in one sitting or something like that. And so, but making sure that I'm also not like overindulging to the point where I'm like exhausted. Like that's very antithetical to what rest is supposed to be. Like you want to do things that fill your cup, fill your tank, but also what you can feel rested. And so like the next day you're like, okay, I feel like I can get on with my week because I got all of that out of the way and now I can just do the things that I need to do.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
So,
Um, one more question for you. Um,
mhm,
what do you think that, and I realize, this is painting it with a really big roller to
mhm,
try to say this is what all artists are like, but
mhm,
what do you think most artists are hoping to accomplish? When they get past their pride or their insecurity or their shame or there's something that keeps an artist or a creative person coming back to that expression, that need to do the song, to do
mhm.
the painting, to edit the video. What do you think most artists hope to accomplish? Why do some people pick up a brush or a guitar or a fabric and feel that need to keep doing it,
Yeah, I think.
Christian or
Mhm.
otherwise? Like,
Yeah,
because I
yeah,
think I think there's something
yeah,
deep going on that inspires a creative person to keep going.
yeah. I think there's a bit of a, again, kind of like a double thing happening here. Often what I think artists are hoping to accomplish is that their voice is heard, um, and that they're seen.
Why?
Uh,
Why? Why?
I think it's just, again, like there's a lot of artists are deep feelers, and at the end of the day, all they want is just someone to like, hey, I see you, I understand you. But it's kind of like that, kind of like that Hagar kind of story where it's like, obviously, yes, God sees me, and Elroy is the God who sees me.
Yeah.
But there's also a level of it of like, I want to be able to share what the Lord has put into my heart. Or, even if you're not like a Christian or a Christ follower, like
Hmm.
there's a dream that I have in my heart. There's something deep that's been placed inside of me that I want to just share with
Mm.
people. It's almost like a kind of like a hospitality thing almost, of like, hey, this is something that I was given and I just want to, put it out there. I want to be able to share it with people. The frustrating thing is it's not often received very well
Hmm.
because it's like, oh, what is this? Like, I don't understand. Like, what is this? I don't understand what you're trying to
Yeah.
say here.
Yeah.
Or, sometimes with paint, in the case of painters, like you'll make a painting and some person will be like, okay, but what's that inverted triangle that's going on here? And you're like,
Yeah.
what, why, that's not the point of it. Or like even putting out music where, you could be like, I have a bunch of friends that like work at churches, but their music isn't necessarily Christian music. And I don't think we all need to be Christian artists either. I think there's a level of, putting yourself out there to be able to rub shoulders with our neighbors.
Hmm. Hmm.
Um, but then there's also like, oh, because you're not making Christian music, I shouldn't like really listen to it or support you or whatever. And
Yeah.
so, yeah, I think
Seeing
most,
but not seeing, hearing but not hearing, right?
exactly.
Yeah.
Um, and then like the other side of that question, which was, what inspires people to, pick up a brush, guitar, fabric, whatever, keep going. Um, I think, the Lord has put curiosity in all of us for a reason.
Mhm.
Um, sometimes we don't use it with wisdom and things happen.
Mhm.
We see that in the Garden of Eden with Adam and Eve of making, the wrong choice. And so, like, God gives us the gift of free will and the gift of like curiosity and wonder, but we do have to use that with discernment too. And not to
Mhm.
say that like not everyone should pick up a brush or that kind of thing, but there's a good reason why you might be drawn to something and that you might want to give it a try. And no one is going to police you and be like, well, no, you're not an artist, so don't pick that up. Like that's actually not what we're called to do. We're supposed to, spur one another on whenever there are things that we want to, try. Because like you just never know what could be like, just purely like a creative outlet for someone, or if we're on the cusp of the next like Vincent van Gogh.
Yeah.
Like,
Yeah.
I have had friends that were engineers and, the one day decided to try music production and then ending up being like one of the best, music producers
Hmm.
and that kind of thing. And so, yeah, like I think like it's just curiosity and wonder, and I think we need to have more of that. I think what happens as adults is once we hear curiosity or wonder, we kind of stray away from that and be like, oh no, but that's for kids. Like
Yeah.
we can't have imaginations because that's
Yeah.
that's just for like we can't be dreaming. We don't have
Yeah.
the luxury to dream and
Put
that kind of
away
thing.
childish things, right?
Exactly. But then
Yeah.
that's where you run into the problem of like people burning out and then people feeling stuck or like at a dead end. And it's because you didn't give yourself space to dream a little bit about, what is the Lord, wanting me to do in this season? Or like maybe there's a reason why we feel like we're, in a rut or like at a dead end. And so what are the things that we need to be doing, not just to get ourselves out of it, but like can actually bring the joy back into our lives. And that's really what I think, art is about, is like what's actually bringing joy back. Because, in the early days, like art not wasn't just like a thought-provoking thing, but it was something that people would employ because it's like, no, we just need this in our house because it brings me joy and we
Yeah.
love, looking at it and it's beautiful and it actually adds value to our lives.
Yep. 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 and everybody's got a different taste, right?
Hmm. Yeah.
Like
Yep.
some guy got inspired one day to paint those dogs playing pool at a pool table, and it's he's all over the world, with that stupid painting. But
Hmm.
but you know what? You're right. There's we have to be careful that we don't take on too worldly of an attitude,
Hmm.
to not see that um, there's many expressions, and just because it's not your taste doesn't mean that it doesn't have value to somebody else, or it tells something to somebody else.
Hmm.
Like you think about a comic painting like that,
Hmm.
for some people it just makes them roll their eyes, or oh, oh
Totally.
yeah. But others, I mean, ha ha, they laugh and they laugh and they laugh. and
Yeah.
and maybe art that makes us laugh is a really good thing too.
Hmm. Yeah. And I think the beautiful thing about it is like, again, art is subjective and yeah, like there will be things that will bring people to tears that might not
Yeah.
necessarily make someone else bring to tears. But I think if we're able to see the beauty in
Hmm.
something, I think that's what matters because beauty is meant to point us to the
Yeah.
Father
Yeah.
and the creator of it.
Hmm.
And so,
Hmm. Yeah. Hey, Jess, it's been fascinating to have this conversation with you.
yeah.
And I've subscribed to your podcast. We're recording this one in July, and so
Amazing.
far there's an introductory episode. So
Hmm.
I'm looking forward to hearing you talk with people,
Yeah.
and just continuing to unpack all these themes. So
Yeah.
thanks for what you're doing in Alberta, and we'll our paths will cross again.
Yeah. Thanks so much for having me. Appreciate
All
it.
right, take care.
Yeah, you too.
Since I recorded that interview with Jessica, she's released her podcast called Renaissance Creative Leadership Podcast. And I'll make sure to put a link to it in the show notes so that you can also go and check her out there. On the next episode, I am going to be talking to Andy Gurley. Andy is from Australia. He's the founder, executive director of Red Frogs International. And across Canada, Red Frogs is on several university campuses where Christian young adults are spending their time providing harm reduction and hospitality to university students. Some really creative things that they're involved in. Andy Gurley is a treat to talk to, and I'm sure you're going to enjoy getting to hear him. Well, until the next episode, I'm your host, Kevin Rogers. Thank you for listening to Sidewalk Skyline Podcast.